Rising above the banks of the Nogat River in northern Poland, Malbork Castle is the largest in the world by land area. A fortress, a monastery, and once the center of a powerful medieval state. Built entirely from brick, this massive complex was home to the Teutonic Knights, a military order of warrior monks who ruled vast parts of the Baltic region for centuries. Today, it is recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, reflecting its historical and cultural significance. In this episode, we're stepping inside, walking through courtyards, halls, and hidden corners to explore this extraordinary medieval castle that once shaped the fate of this entire region. Just under an hour's drive from the city of Gdansk, the journey to Malbork Castle takes you through quiet stretches of Poland's countryside, open farmland and small villages. Arriving by car was straightforward, with parking available right next to the castle grounds. It costs just 2 zlotys per hour, and from here it's only a short walk to the ticket office. As we approached the ticket office, the scale of this place started to become more apparent. Long brick walls and towers gradually coming into view. Entry tickets cost 80 zlotys per person and include a self-guided audio tour available in different languages. Malbork Castle consists of 3 main areas, which form a layered complex. The Low Castle as the outer enclosure, the Middle Castle as the administrative center, and the High Castle as the oldest and most secluded inner core. Our visit began in the Low Castle, the only part of the castle visitors can enter free of charge. As we were heading to the main entrance leading into the Middle Castle, we began to appreciate just how heavily fortified the entire complex was designed to be. After having our tickets checked at the entrance, we passed through the first gate and crossed a bridge over what once was part of the castle's defensive moat. From there, we continued through a series of gates and passageways, each layer adding another level of control and protection, with barriers that would have made it difficult for anyone to pass through unchecked. At the end of it all, a large space opened up before us. The Middle Castle Courtyard.
Malbork Castle is the largest castle in the world, built back in the 1300s by the Teutonic Knights to house several hundred knights. This building was meant to illustrate their wealth and their power. Today, this castle is one of the most amazing tourist attractions in all of Poland.
Surrounded on all sides by tall brick buildings, the scale felt different from anything we'd seen before. Standing there, it was hard not to imagine what this place might have looked like centuries ago, filled with people, conversations, and the rhythm of life at the center of a powerful state. The Teutonic Knights, a military order that controlled large parts of the region, did not build the castle all at once, but expanded it in stages over time as their power increased. The Middle Castle formed the center of administration and daily life. This was where officials worked, guests were received, and important decisions were made. From the Middle Castle, the route continued deeper into the complex, crossing another bridge that once formed part of the castle's inner defenses. This marked a clear transition, separating the more public areas from the most protected part of the fortress, and leading into the High Castle, effectively the inner sanctuary. Instead of heading straight inside, we first turned left, following a narrow route along the High Castle's outer perimeter. At the end of the path, we reached the entrance to St. Anne's Chapel. Inside, the space felt relatively small and understated, yet it held particular significance. Several Grandmasters of the Teutonic Order were buried here, making it one of the most important spiritual sites within the castle. From there, we continued along the walkway, eventually reaching the Grandmaster's garden. A quiet, park-like area, the perfect place to enjoy a little break. Just around the corner from the garden is the mill, where essential supplies like flour were produced on site. Spaces like this supported daily life and allowed the fortress to function independently during long periods of isolation or siege. Continuing further, we eventually looped back to the entrance of the High Castle, completing the outer circuit. Now it was time to head inside, through a short passageway that opens onto the inner cloister courtyard, which is surrounded by arched walkways and the buildings where the knights lived and worked together as a religious community. Our first stop inside the High Castle was the kitchen area. Large and functional, it reflects the scale of life within the castle, where meals had to be prepared for the large community of knights and staff. Continuing on, a staircase led us to the upper level, to some of the most important spaces within the High Castle. At the top, we followed the vaulted corridor with its pointed arches until we eventually reached the chapter house. This room, with its tall, ribbed vaults supported by slender columns, creates a balanced and orderly space, suited to its role as a place where the knights used to gather to make important decisions. Chapter meetings were formal assemblies, governed by strict ritual and precedent, where seating arrangements reflected hierarchy and rank. Continuing along the corridor, we reached the Golden Gate, a richly decorated entrance marking the transition into a more sacred space. Passing through it, we entered the Church of the Blessed Virgin Mary. The importance of faith is reflected in the church's architecture, in its scale, vaulted ceilings, and rich decoration in its earlier form. This makes the scale of destruction it later suffered all the more significant. During the Second World War, the church was almost completely destroyed, leaving only fragments of its outer walls and the exposed floor of St. Anne's Chapel down below it. The church was later rebuilt through careful reconstruction, combining original elements with newer materials. A contrast that remains clearly visible throughout the interior, a reminder of both the scale of its destruction and the remarkable effort behind its restoration. A small side exit led onto a narrow, winding staircase that climbed further upwards and brought us into an exhibition room that traces the castle's history, offering an in-depth view of what had been lost and rebuilt. Once a vast and thriving complex, the castle stood as one of the most important centers in the region. Much of it was left in ruins after World War II, with entire sections reduced to fragments. What stands today is the result of decades of careful reconstruction, an extraordinary effort that brought the castle back to life. From here, we headed back downstairs, past a wall lined with hand-painted ceramic tiles, until we reached a small entrance that led us into the convent refectory, the communal dining hall. Long and expansive, this space was used for shared meals, taken together at set times as part of a structured daily routine. As our tour of Malbork Castle slowly came to an end, we couldn't help but imagine the hurried footsteps, clattering armor, flickering torchlight, shouted orders, and the distant sound of chanting that would have once echoed through the castle. History from long ago that somehow still feels alive within these walls. Making our way back out, it was hard not to reflect on what this place represents. Not just the ambition and craftsmanship that built it centuries ago, but the destruction it later suffered, and the extraordinary effort that brought it back. Crossing the bridge over the Nogat, the full scale of the castle came back into view. What stands here today is more than a reconstruction. It is a testament to persistence, care, and the decision to preserve something that could easily have been lost.